Hello, and thank you for joining us at today's FIT Authors Talks. FIT Authors Talks is part of the Love Your Library event series and is an initiative of FIT Library that brings authors from our community to speak about their work. From photography to fashion illustration, fiction writing to art, these talks encompass a multitude of projects and themes and celebrate creativity. Today, our FIT author is Raissa Bretaña, a New York-based fashion historian who works as a writer, researcher, lecturer, and educator. She received a BFA in costume design from Boston University and a master's in fashion and textile studies from the Fashion Institute of Technology, where she has served as adjunct faculty in the History of Art department. Raissa currently works at the Museum of FIT and continues to freelance as a consultant to costume designers for period film and television productions. She is also the author of Shoes and the forthcoming Fashion of the Gilded Age, both published by Abbeville Press. So a little bit about the book. This gorgeous volume profiles some 15 leading ladies who had Moxie to spare. It is illustrated with more than 200 film stills, publicity photos, and lobby cards from the collection of Ira M. Resnick, many published here for the first time. Together, these captivating images reveal how the stars of the Golden Age used pose and performance, fashion and glamour to shape their images both on screen and off. Thank you, Raissa, for joining us today, and welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully you all can hear and see me okay. This is my first virtual book talk, but I am very excited to revisit this book, which was published just shy of a year ago. So I will dive right in. Let's see. So as was mentioned, this is a book that features images from the collection of Ira M. Resnick, my co-author. Ira and I were introduced to each other via our publisher, Abbeville Press, with whom we had both previously published. And I was actually proposing another book idea when the publishers came to me and said, we have this thing that you're probably going to be very interested in, because anybody knows me knows that I love classic Hollywood. And yes, indeed, I was interested in this project. So Ira and I met, we hit it off, and we started this project, which was meant to feature pieces from his vast collection, tens of thousands of images focusing on movie art. And he needed somebody to write the text, and so I was ready to go. So this book focuses on different types of movie imagery, particularly studio portraits, which were taken at the behest of the studio in order to create a star persona. You had promotional photographs, which were tied to a particular film and often featured an actor in costume. And then you had film stills, which were taken directly from the films themselves. And finally, we wanted to throw in a little bit of color, so we drew upon Ira's collection of lobby cards, which are kind of smaller versions of movie posters that were often released in sets to feature actors in different scenes. And the parameters we gave ourselves, we really wanted to stick to the years 1915 to 1955. Because this was a period that really saw the rise and fall of the studio system, and you really got to see the different types of stardom that helped to propel that system. Now, as that description mentioned, the bulk of the book focuses on 15 actresses, which are pictured here. I will talk a little bit about each of them, and I know everybody has their favorites. Admittedly, some of my favorites have not made it onto here, but part of the challenge of this project was working with a set collection and being able to draw from that and curate a selection that tells a compelling narrative about the history of Hollywood. So we'll talk about these 15 actresses. I have designated the images that are featured in the book by putting a gold border around them. But for the purposes of this presentation, I've snuck in a few supplementary images as well. Now, when selecting the actresses, we really thought about what Moxie is and how it can be brought to life in different ways. So the number one question I got was, what is Moxie? And you could describe it as ambition or courage or determination or business savvy or just plain guts. And for each of these 15 actresses, we really wanted to focus on the specific type of Moxie that they engendered. Just as a little bonus, there is a chapter at the end called Also Starring that features an additional 6 actresses that were represented in Ira's collection and just were worth mentioning. Gloria Swanson, Miriam Hopkins, Norma Shearer, Rosalind Russell, Ingrid Bergman, and often considered to be the last true movie star, Elizabeth Taylor. But let's jump in. We open the book. The first 2 chapters are dedicated to women who were pioneers during the silent era. They're quite opposite from each other. On the left, you have Lillian Gish, who was a timeless ingenue and oftentimes a tragic heroine. But then on the other side, you have Louise Brooks, who was the most modern of moderns and really was the kind of quintessential cinematic flapper. But both of these women had to build their careers during a period when characterization was ruled by archetype. So during the silent era, there wasn't dialogue to help further character development. Therefore, all of these kind of recognizable tropes were the way that people were able to build a star persona. And the tropes of modern or ingenue often came with certain sartorial codes. And Lillian Gish absolutely personified that ingenue. She had this really youthful, cherubic face that was further accentuated with kind of like Cupid doll looking makeup. But she wears the costume of the ingenue, namely the long ringlet curls, as well as like light colored diaphanous textiles. She had this ethereal quality to her. And cinematographers, as well as still photographers, really sought to emphasize that by creating this soft glow around her. And one cinematographer actually called it the Lillian Gish lens, but now we know it as a soft focus lens. But who was the real Lillian Gish? Unfortunately, in the silent era, these women tended to be really one-dimensional on screen. And Lillian Gish was far from a shrinking violet in the real world. In reality, she was quite a bit a power player in Hollywood. She pioneered a new, more naturalistic style of acting that has given way to the style of acting more commonly used today. But she was also a really, really dedicated artist. She was so dedicated to her craft. She was famous for doing her own stunts, even in really dangerous situations. She almost froze to death while filming Way Down East in 1920. But a little known fact about her is that same year, she also directed a film. It was called Remodeling Her Husband. And she led an all-female production team and even had famous writer Dorothy Parker write the intertitles for that film. So she worked tirelessly to preserve cinema as an art form. Later in her career, she did work a lot in film preservation. So quite a bit more to her than kind of that one-dimensional ingenue that you see in the images. On the other side, you have Louise Brooks, who was the aesthetic and archetypal foil to Lillian Gish. She had a devil-may-care attitude, which you can see in Pandora's Box on the right. She had like an insouciance about her. But she was instantly recognizable by this jet black bobbed hairstyle. And with that hairstyle, she produced some of the decade's most defining imagery. And earlier I said that she is kind of the quintessential cinematic flapper. Part of that is because she was so perfectly suited to 1920s fashion. You can see in this studio portrait, she's wearing a dress that is very similar to the styles being featured in the pages of Vogue. But she was such a fashion icon that she also went on to inspire American designers like Sally Milgram, who designed a Louise Brooks evening dress, which is pictured here on the right. But off screen, she was rather willful and rebellious. She left Hollywood at the height of her career to make movies in Europe, where she thought the films could better showcase her talent. And one of those films was Prix de Beauté from 1930. There's a photograph on the left there. In that film, she was costumed by Paris couturier Jean Patou. And she had quite an indelible sense of style, and yet she had a really short career. And part of that could be attributed to the fact that she didn't want to play Hollywood's games, and she actually excused herself from the industry and sought other endeavors. Soon after her was Anna May Wong. Anna May Wong, who was a trailblazing actress whose brand of Moxie could best be described as resilience or courageousness. She was the first Chinese American movie star, and her path to stardom was not an easy one. She had quite an uphill battle to climb, both in terms of casting as well as the anti-miscegenation laws that prevented her from ever playing a romantic lead. These laws stated that she could never be the romantic interest of a white male lead, and therefore she was often relegated to supporting roles that kind of fell into one of two categories. So she was either the shrinking demure Madame Butterfly, or she was the domineering, mysterious dragon lady, which, as you can imagine, these were very limiting archetypes. And she really had to navigate the duality of her Chinese American identity throughout her career. But on the rare instance that she was not being exoticized, she actually was as well seen as a cinematic flapper. You can see these images here kind of capture that modern spirit of the 1920s. She herself was quite a fashion plate. And much like Louise Brooks, she had those really blunt bangs and that angled bob haircut that we think of as kind of the cornerstone of 1920s style. Next, I want to talk about two actresses that began their careers as exoticized vamps, but were actually able to move away from those limiting roles and recast themselves as screen sophisticates. Incidentally, both of them, both Myrna Loy and Claudette Colbert, were really, really savvy businesswomen. And as their careers took off in the 1930s, they were able to negotiate extremely lucrative and advantageous contracts which really set them apart from a lot of the studio contract players at the time. So let's start with Myrna Loy. As you can see in these images, she was pigeonholed into this exotic vamp archetype. She was often made to play non-white roles, despite the fact that she was a green-eyed, auburn-haired woman of Welsh descent. So how that happened is difficult to say. But she was feeling really stuck in the late 1920s and early 1930s. And in her memoir, she's very candid about how racist these practices were. But she eventually was able to move away from this by kind of recasting herself as a sophisticated comedienne. She moved away from drama and through comedy was able to start this second part of her career. And it was really her being able to cash in on her incomparable wit and charisma and her ability to wear clothes really, really well. So she is best known for playing Nora Charles in the Thin Man series. This really was her breakout role and the one that she is best known for. In 1934, she did the first Thin Man movie starring opposite William Powell. And as Nick and Nora Charles, they really created a new cinematic ideal for marriage. For a lot of the movie-going public, they had never seen a marriage like this. And theirs was a marriage of equals. It was filled with witty repartee and flirtation, but above all, mutual admiration and respect. And she carried this off screen as well. They were equal partners on screen, but off screen, after the first film, she realized that she was only getting paid half of what William Powell was making. So she actually went on strike and told the studio that she will not be making any more of these incredibly successful films unless she receives equal pay as William Powell. And she did end up getting that equal pay with something like a $20,000 bonus in addition. And with that, she was able to build this monumental career that was really rooted in this role. But because of this role, she was often tiringly referred to as the perfect wife, which feels like such a reductive way to think about her. So the way that I reframe it in the book is that rather than simply being a perfect wife, what she was really doing was positioning herself as equal to her male co-star. And in every scene, she demands that they keep up with her by just elevating the level of wit that is present in each scene. And it's that kind of one-upmanship that I think really set her apart. But our other early vamp, we have Claudette Colbert. Early in her career, she made her mark by playing vampy women from antiquity, such as she did in Sign of the Cross in 1932 and Cleopatra in 1934. But like Myrna Loy, she was also able to make that transition into well-dressed socialite. And a lot of that was due to her partnership with designers like Travis Banton, who was the head studio designer at Paramount. Here you can see two promotional photos that show her wearing Banton's clothes. And because of these sumptuous costumes, she was heralded as a style icon. And you can see that in Silver Screen magazine from October 1932. They had an entire spread entitled Dress Like Claudette Colbert. Interestingly, however, her most famous role is decidedly unglamorous. And it was this film, It Happened One Night, that brought her an Oscar win. In it, she stars opposite Clark Gable in a low-budget road movie, as they called them. I do want to play perhaps the best-known scene from this film because I think it perfectly illustrates her particular brand of Moxie. Oh dear, it seems the volume isn't working, but you can get the idea. Treat it like a silent film because all you need to know is they are stranded and he's having trouble hitchhiking and she is determined to get them a car, and so she takes matters into her own hands. So yes, the famous scene where she pulls up her skirt and stops a car using her very shapely legs. So It Happened One Night was thought to be the seminal screwball comedy. But if there's one queen of screwball comedy, it's got to be Carole Lombard. And Carole Lombard was, as you can see, quite feisty and spirited. And she had an interesting persona on screen. She was really fast-talking chatterbox and prone to profanity. Yet in still imagery, you see a very different side of Lombard. Over on the left, you can see a promotional photo from My Man Godfrey, another film that's credited as a seminal screwball. And in it, she looks almost angelic. However, if you've seen the film, you know that she is quite a fast-talking dame in it. But the visual record that we have left of her really shows this like luminous screen goddess who is always perfectly dressed, the apex of sophistication, and she really was one of the favorites to dress, according to Travis Banton. And it was Travis Banton himself who said, quote, "Throw a bolt of material at Carole and any way it hits her, she'll look great." She did wear clothes incredibly well. Unfortunately, her career was cut very, very short because she was the first casualty of World War II from the Hollywood colony, so to speak. And she died while on a war bond tour in 1942. And so she's kind of been preserved in her luminous youth. Another very well-dressed star was Kay Francis. Kay Francis, who is lesser known today, probably due to the fact that one, she famously said that she couldn't wait to be forgotten. But a lot of her obscurity and her downfall could be credited to an ad that ran in the Hollywood Reporter in 1938 called Box Office Poison. And this ad named many actors and actresses who were thought to have lost their box office appeal. Several of them are featured in this book, and so I really tried to emphasize their redemption narratives. However, for Kay Francis, like, her career really was over in 1938. But before that, she was known as the best-dressed woman in Hollywood. And she was unusually tall for the period. She was 5'9", and designers loved to dress her because she had the stature to carry off much more daring looks than a lot of the petite framed starlets of the period. She was known for playing confident career women. She usually was, some sort of boss or head of a company. In some films, she had male assistants, as you can see in Mandalay from 1934. But most often, she was cast in fashion-adjacent roles. as she was in Street of Women from 1932, in which she plays a New York-based fashion designer. And you can see in this promotional photograph, she's posing in front of her sketches. But let's be honest, all of these fashion-centric movies really were just an excuse to put her in some really, really fabulous clothes. And that's because Warner Brothers knew that she was a big box office draw for women who saw her movies with much excitement so that they could emulate her style. And so she was the queen of Warner Brothers and one of the highest paid actresses during the height of her career. But she was unseated by Bette Davis, who was so prominent at Warner Brothers that she later became known as the fifth Warner Brother. Now, I've paired Bette Davis here with Ida Lupino because their early careers have really interesting parallels. But they would each go on to leave their own striking mark on film history. But let's talk about those career beginnings. Both of them seem like such singular individuals, and yet when they were first signed to their respective studios, they were brought on as kind of alternatives to already existing stars. So Bette Davis was signed to Warner Brothers in the early 1930s because she looked like Constance Bennett, who was, no disrespect to Constance Bennett, like a kind of run-of-the-mill, sweet, charming ingenue. And so they thought, perhaps Bette Davis could be our Constance Bennett. And Ida Lupino was given this bleach blonde hairstyle, and she was marketed as the English Jean Harlow. But if you know anything about these two actresses, it's that they went on to be nothing like those two predecessors. And interestingly, both of them pivoted their careers using the exact same tactic, which was taking on a really unsympathetic role, namely a tawdry woman of ill repute with a Cockney accent, and use this as a springboard to take on more dramatic, unflattering roles. So Bette Davis did this in 1934 with Of Human Bondage. She delivered a critically acclaimed performance that caused one of the biggest Academy Award scandals in Oscar history because she was failed to be nominated in the Best Actress category, and the Academy rebelled. But Ida Lupino followed in those footsteps in 1939 with The Light That Failed, and the similarities were not lost on the Hollywood press because in Screenland in 1940, they published an article called "Watch Out, Bette Davis, Here Comes Ida Lupino." But they would go on to very different careers in the 1940s and 50s. Bette Davis would deliver her most definitive role in 1950. That was Margot Channing in All About Eve, a role that she did not win an Oscar for, but she was the first actress to garner a record 10 Academy Award nominations, and she did win 2 of them. Now, these two images here kind of illustrate the quintessential Bette Davis that's etched in cinematic memory. Usually, she's got these wide, expressive eyes, flared nostrils, and the ever-present cigarette. Ida Lupino, on the other hand, went a very different direction in the 1950s. She took her moxie behind the camera. She began directing, screenwriting, and producing films under an independent film company that she founded. And she was only the second woman ever admitted to the Directors Guild of America. And in the 1950s, she was the only woman in the guild. And when they were addressed, they were famously addressed as gentlemen and Miss Lupino. But it's not just the fact that she was making movies that was so groundbreaking. It was the fact that she was doing movies that didn't shy away from unsavory topics. And in her films, she delivered really incisive commentary on current social issues. And this was probably the edgiest that American cinema had been since the pre-code era. But speaking of the pre-code era, we have to talk about Barbara Stanwyck, who began her career in the early 1930s. In the early 1930s, the Motion Picture Production Code had not yet been fully taken up. It was in 1934 that it was beginning to be more strictly enforced. And so movies from 1930 to 1934 were especially risque. And Barbara Stanwyck developed a talent for playing a girl from the wrong side of the tracks. And she herself had a very difficult upbringing, and she brought that to those performances. Now, I'm not sure if the video will work. I will try it again. All right. That's all right. I'll just narrate it. In this film, she is often met with unwelcome sexual advances, and she always has just the right way to push against these men that are trying to claim power over her. But the thing I love most about Barbara Stanwyck is the longevity and the versatility in her career. She somehow managed to deliver like genre-defining performances in every decade. So in the early 1930s, she was doing pre-code. By the late 30s, she had really established herself as a force in melodrama. And in the early 1940s, she too became really good at doing a screwball comedy. And these two images are from two of my favorite Stanwyck films, The Lady Eve and Ball of Fire. And both of these films are from 1941, and both of them feature costumes by Edith Head. Now, this year marked the beginning of a long collaboration that Barbara Stanwyck would have with Edith Head. One of the better known ones is their partnership for Double Indemnity in 1944, often thought of as the epitome of film noir. It's the one that I used to show in my class because I thought it was the noiriest noir. But Edith Head was very good at outfitting the femmes fatales of the noir genre. So I had to throw in a couple of the other women featured in the book here. You have Veronica Lake and Gloria Swanson, both also costumed by Edith Head in these promotional photographs. Let's look further into the noir genre. The last 3 chapters in the book are dedicated to the femme fatale actresses. So we have Veronica Lake, Gloria Graham, and Lauren Bacall. Now, each of these 3 actresses had her own unique approach to playing a villainous woman, and each of them had a signature style as well. Veronica Lake was known for one thing and almost only one thing only, and that was her hair. She was famous for this peekaboo hairstyle, which was meant to cover one eye so that she could coyly peer behind a curtain of hair. But it was an incredibly popular hairstyle. And it was so widely copied in the 1940s that it is said that the U.S. War Production Board actually had to appeal to her studio to ask her to change her hairstyle for the sake of the war effort. There were so many women wearing this peekaboo hairstyle to work in munitions factories, and the war board really wanted to emphasize safety and utility over noir aspirations. And unfortunately, as soon as she changed her hairstyle, her career kind of petered out, but she's been immortalized in these images with that signature style. You have Gloria Graham, who had the uncanny ability to be both sweet and sultry at the same time. On the left, you have a promotional photo from Crossfire where she looks every bit as sultry as she looks a little innocent in the studio portrait on the right. But she was known for playing, there's no other way to say it, for playing floozies. And she brought this like streetwise cynicism and this like hardened brass to these characters that make her really, really compelling to watch. And she's one that I wasn't too familiar with when I started this project. And some of my favorite noir films now definitely have her in them. But there is the first lady of film noir, Lauren Bacall, who burst onto the scene in 1944 with To Have and Have Not. This was her first partnership with Humphrey Bogart, a man she would go on to make an additional 3 films with. And they would also be off-screen partners and one of the most legendary Hollywood couples in film history. But as far as fashion is concerned, she really set the tone with this first film when she shimmied her way to the credits wearing this checked suit. It was a suit that was feverishly copied, and they decided to reprise it for her next partnership with Bogart. That was The Big Sleep in 1946. You can see she's wearing a houndstooth suit. And due to this, the checked suit kind of became a well-known fixture for film noir costuming. But Lauren Bacall, too, had a very long career. It began with a career in fashion. She actually started as a fashion model, and it was a cover of Harper's Bazaar in 1943 that actually put her on the map, because it is when Howard Hawks saw this cover that he decided that this was his next leading lady. But post-film noir, she returned to her fashion roots and played roles in the film fashion genre. She, like Kay Francis, often played roles that put her in fashion situations. So she played a fashion model in How to Marry a Millionaire from 1953, and then would go on to play a designer in Designing Woman in 1957. But she had quite a fashion legacy off screen as well. She became quite a muse to many designers and collected their work. And we are very lucky to be the home of her archive here at FIT. She donated hundreds of pieces by Halston and Courrèges and Cardin and Yves Saint Laurent to the museum at FIT, and we are the very proud custodians of her fashion legacy. So I have to end with 2 of perhaps the best known and most beloved women in this book. You have Katharine Hepburn and Marlene Dietrich, who were both known for their very unique and an often transgressive sense of style. So I will start with Kate. Katharine Hepburn, who was famous for wearing dungarees on set. This is one of my favorite photographs in the book. This is her on the set of Christopher Strong pairing some jeans with a fur coat. If that doesn't say Katharine Hepburn, I don't know what does. And throughout her career, Hollywood tried to mold her. But she was very adamant that she did not want to change herself or change her style in order to have a film career. And she told Motion Picture Magazine in 1934, quote, "Should I wear a different kind of clothes just because Hollywood wants to make me over? Never." So she was very forthright about her disgust towards the Hollywood star making system. And indeed, she was probably the most headstrong, uh, if not the most self-possessed of the Hollywood stars. She really did march to the beat of her own drum. There's a great story where the studio was so mad that she kept wearing these trousers that they actually took them away while she was on set filming. And when she saw that her pants had been stolen, she just simply walked around wearing no pants at all and said, "If I can't dress the way I want to dress, then I won't wear clothes at all." But this headstrong quality definitely found its way into the roles that she played. She took on roles that mirrored her own firebrand persona. She played an aviatrix in Christopher Strong, and a diplomat, reporter, Renaissance woman in Woman of the Year from 1942. And with these films, she really became the paradigm of modern womanhood, at least portrayed through American cinema. And it was her resilient spirit that really allowed her to have such a long career, because she too had many career setbacks. She was also named as one of the actors in the box office Poison ad in 1938, and her career really suffered in the year or two that followed. But I think the ultimate demonstration of her moxie was the way that she orchestrated her own comeback by finding a project that would allow her to really display her talents in the best possible way. And that is when she worked with Philip Barry on the play, The Philadelphia Story. That was a role that was meant to showcase her. And she was smart enough to buy the film rights for it, so that when the play became a success on Broadway, she was able to sell the movie rights to the highest bidding studio, and that was MGM, who produced the movie in 1940. It's an incredible film. If you haven't seen it, I always cite it as a great entry-level classic film. But I'd like to end with Marlene Dietrich, who probably has the strongest style legacies of any of these actresses. But one of the reasons I love her so much is her ability to embody contradiction. She was a really, really hardworking actress, and yet managed to come off as impassably cool. She positioned herself as the ultimate mainstream movie star, and yet was also able to exist as an iconoclast who challenged norms, especially gender norms. And she is best known for her gender-bending top hat and tails ensemble, which she first donned in 1930 in the film Morocco, which she repeated in The Blonde Venus in 1932, and which she would continuously revisit in the 1950s as a cabaret performer. But she could be, mysterious and androgynous in one film, and then ultra feminine and glamorous in the next film. She too was a muse to Travis Banton, who really felt like he could outfit her in particularly daring and alluring ensembles, as he did in Shanghai Express in 1932. But she also was incredibly self-aware, and she knew who she was. She knew the power she commanded as a movie star. And so by the 1950s, she was able to throw her weight around a bit. And famously for the Alfred Hitchcock film Stage Fright in 1950, she demanded that she be dressed by Christian Dior. And when it was told to her that that was not in the production budget, she famously said, "No Dior, no Dietrich." And so in the end, she did get her Dior wardrobe. But when considering her style legacy, she was very self-reflective. This is a great quote that I would like to end with. When asked about her sense of style, she said, quote, "I dress for the image, not for myself, not for the public, not for fashion, not for men." And I think that perfectly embodies the spirit of Moxie, this entirely self-possessed woman who knows her worth and is able to be herself unapologetically. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Raissa. How fun and how exquisite these women are. We're going to go to Q&A. Anybody that has a question can put it in the chat and I'll deliver it to Raissa. And I have a couple here we can start off with. And so we'll jump on in. So what caught your attention about this time period in Hollywood, and how did the premise of the book come about?
So this period of Hollywood is a personal favorite of mine. I actually am fascinated by the star making machine that was the studio system. I actually like the premise that that these people could go into the studio as mere mortals, and then through script writing and costuming and stylized photography, these people could emerge as gods.
Wow.
And this concept of Moxie, Ira had thought about it when he brought the project to me, and when I came on board was really when we started to really tease out what that meant and what different qualities could be considered synonymous with Moxie.
Oh, great, great, great. Matthew asks, how many Moxie women did you originally consider for the book, and how did you narrow down your selection?
That's a great question. So obviously, there was no way we were going to get every woman who's ever had Moxie in this book. It really was, we were guided by the collection. And so I approached the project as a curator would approach a museum collection for an exhibition. I looked at what the strongest holdings were in Ira's collection and tried to find those different types. So I know I needed, I needed a brassy one, I needed a sassy one, I needed a witty one. But it was a challenging process because sometimes the limitations of a single collection can really hinder the storytelling process. And so admittedly, some of my favorites are not in the book. Ira and I agreed on most of the women, but I am a huge fan of Joan Crawford, who was Moxie incarnate. However, Ira did not like her. And so unfortunately, there weren't photos of Joan Crawford in his collection, which meant they weren't available for the book. And so she was sadly omitted. And people ask about her at every book signing.
Wow. So Jane Fonda wrote the foreword.
Yes.
And how did you get Jane Fonda to write that? And how does she represent the next era of Moxie in Hollywood?
Well, I will preface this by saying I I've been a Jane Fonda fan from the day I was born. And when we were considering, who could possibly be the person to write this forward, Ira and I said it has to be Jane. It can't be anybody besides Jane. And let me reach quickly. Actually, in my office, I keep my signed photo of Jane Fonda handy.
Oh, fantastic.
Next to my desk. But we were trying to find ways to reach out to her. I was on the board of a film at Lincoln Center, as well as the San Francisco Silent Film Festival. And so it was really us going to film festivals and just trying to find connections to Jane Fonda. And Ira was a photographer in the 70s and 80s, and he had actually photographed Jane before. So he did have kind of a distant connection to her. But when we were able to work all of those, the 6 degrees, we were finally able to get in contact with her, and she did agree to write the foreword, which, like, oh my gosh, it's a dream come true. And I think she was the perfect person because she really is the link between us today and the women then. She was in movies with some of these women. Her father was in movies with a lot of these women, and so she really felt like the perfect conduit between that era of Moxie and ours. And I don't think anybody would argue with the fact that she is out there, showing her Moxie every day. She is so engaged, and it goes so much farther than her on-screen career. Seeing the work she is doing as a producer and as an activist, I think really speaks to what we perceive as Moxie in the 21st century.
Yeah, she's pretty incredible. So you taught the history of costume and fashion and film at FIT. How did it help shape the book? Did it help shape the book?
Yeah, so I taught the class from 2019 to 2024, and it was my favorite class to teach because it was such a joy being able to introduce a new generation to these women. And so in the class, I was able to play films that starred a lot of these actresses. And so in writing the book, I was really able to draw on my experience in the classroom and seeing what excited the students, what narratives really resonated with them. And so I was working on this book as I was finishing up with my last semester as an adjunct in the history of art department, and it felt like a nice capstone to that experience.
Nice. So the photography of these women is exquisite in the book. The book is just gorgeous. What part did the photographer play in showcasing the glamour of these actresses? And was the photographer part of the whole studio system, creating each of their profiles and, personalities?
Yes, there were some designated studio photographers whose job it was to help craft this persona. So as we were putting together the book, a lot of the same names, the same photographer names kept coming up over and over and over. Like, there's a lot of Harrell in there. But I was fascinated by the actresses that were as involved in that image making process. And I'm glad I still have the Marlene Dietrich slide up because I think she is the perfect example. She was such a master at manipulating her image, and it was said that, like, she was very bossy on set. She told the photographer where she needed her key light because she knew she wanted the key light high. She wanted her cheekbones highlighted. She knew which way to turn her head. And her role in that image making is, I think, it just speaks to her Moxie off screen as well.
Yeah, that's incredible that they still had some modicum of freedom of expression, in creating their own personas. If there are no other questions, I have one more question for you. And that is, how do you find the actresses of this time period different from those of today?
So I think that the actresses of today have certainly built upon the legacies of the women that are featured in this book, especially the ones featured early in the book, those who really started their careers in the silent film era were really limited to like one-dimensional portrayals of women. And you see as the studio era moves on that they're able to develop more nuance and complexity. But I think the difference today is that we don't expect these actresses to be one thing anymore. They don't have to just be the screwball girl. They don't have to just be the femme fatale. And I think that the actresses of today owe a great debt to these women that preceded them because they are able to demonstrate a wider range of womanhood because of them.
Well, thank you so much for your presentation. Everyone, we have the book in the library. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. Come check it out if you want. So if there are no further questions, thank you so much for your presentation on Moxie. And let's see. We've got, thank you so much for this incredible story and incredible perspective, and a couple more thank yous. And thank you all for joining us tonight. Have a great rest of your night, and goodbye.
Thank you so much. I had a great time.